In these couple of videos, I'll be presenting you with two case studies, one in each video. But first, we must have a message to convey, an idea or feeling. If you have a clear idea about what you want to say, it is already a way of eliminating the blank page block and get you started. One thing is to know about the musical theory, and another is figuring out a way to use it without getting too technical and allowing your instincts and knowledge to kick in when needed. Oddly enough, the first thing you need to do in order to get your creativity going is to somehow impose some rules. This doesn't mean you will be restricted. In fact, you will be eliminating that feeling of, I can do so much and anything I want that I can't make up my mind on what to do. As soon as you have imposed some limits, meaning you have chosen a topic to talk about, it is time to unleash your creativity. As an example, we will be considering apathy, an almost living kind of state where you just perform your routine tasks day after day without much thought, while bearing the feeling of emptiness. To aid our thought organization, we will be considering three variables that will help us build a possible story for our music composition. Looking at the acronym PsychoNamb, these variables are psychologic, context, and ambient. Our goal will be to associate our ideas to these variables, which could turn out something like this. Apathy, conformity, sameness, and emptiness go to the psychologic field. Getting up every day for work, unhappy with this way of living, finding strength to carry on and change while inner self tries to reach out, because we don't want a bleak future for our character, all these belong to the context. And finally, working in the big city, a jungle of concrete, sounds of traffic, horns, people talking, go to the ambient section. I'm not going to get too much into it as we already have more than enough to illustrate what we want. And now, this is where the music comes in. Everything that was written will be considered as a potential extra musical cue. Our job will be to associate them to musical elements and translate those into music, and I will guide you through this process. Let's put our creative minds to work. This is how I chose to use music theory and associate it to extra musical cues. To depict the sense of emptiness, I used space chord voicings in fourths and fifths for a sense of coldness, detachment, and vagueness played by the piano, and also complemented by a drone sound. Harmonically, all these are based in the root of C. Since this example tends to the representation of an inner struggle, representing the core of the individual, I chose to relate the harmonic changes as much as possible to the chosen root note, opting by using it as a pedal note throughout the harmonic changes. This also helps to convey the monotony and dullness. For sameness, working and days passing by, I use repetitive melodic and rhythmic patterns, or ostinatos, chord changes with little voice movement, and also use the drums that, despite its somewhat jagged rhythm, it transmits a sense of continuity, mainly because of the cymbals work. To depict confusion, traffic, and people's voices, I used contrasting chords from different tonalities that swirl around our head as if they were everywhere. These chords still maintain the same vagueness, and for that I used suspended chords. And finally, for the inner self reaching out or forcing and suggesting changes, I used the diminished scale based in C, representing his condition as a passive person, in contrast with chromatic movement from inner voice struggling to reach out. For this, I changed the root or the center to F minor harmonic scale. The dissonance represents the struggle to be heard, and meanwhile it is also the reason why the bass and drums are at a lower volume in this section, as if it was trying to overpower the apathy. Now that you listened to all the examples, let me show you how this sounds when put together. Although this is what I came up with, depending on your personal style, you will get a different result. It will all depend on the way you manipulate the musical elements. For instance, I use timbre to choose the instruments that will help me to convey the message I intended, associated them with ideas, traits of our character or its inner self. In this case, the inner self was represented by strings. As for the rhythmic approach, played by the drums, it was chosen for its contemporary urban feel. Only by changing these two elements you would get significantly different results. I will now show you a second example to illustrate what I am suggesting. I purposefully chose other instruments to work with and had a different rhythmic approach, which led me to a different approach on the overall arrangement and style. The main ideas regarding chord changes and melodies were maintained, so it can still relate to the main message. Here are the main changes. For the repetitiveness, the vagueness, traffic and voices for contrast. And the inner self voice. And now here's the overall result. A lyric could have been written and then sung in order to reinforce the message. You could even choose different ways of singing the parts in a way that would best describe the situation. For instance, in the inner self voice part, you could try to sound as if you were begging to be heard, almost crying, or even a cry or shout for attention. It will all depend on your personal style. For the next video, we will be looking at how you can work with images or graphic cues, and still have the approach suggested using the Psychonam variables and associate them to extra musical cues using the musical elements.